let's talk about the classifications of the Jewish community or the components of the Jewish community. And the reason why it is useful to talk about these components is obviously because when one is awakened to follow a Jewish faith, then you might come across obstacles at times where people disprove your Jewry or discourage you from becoming a Jew, and it might seem like a racist barrier that has been put, but it's not quite that simple. Also, to tackle the Hebrew roots and also to tackle the Hebrew Israelite movement and its view of who is Jewish and who is not Jewish for real. And the popular notion in Jewish roots or in Hebrew Israelite movements is to say, for example, that Ashkenazim are not real Jews because they come from Germany. And obviously, if you have interaction with Ashkenazim, they'll also disprove your Jewishness based on your skin color. It's not a secret. But I want to put these things into, or these components of Judaism into perspective. I'm not going to go too deep into Jewish history because now we'll have a deeper lecture than we actually need to have. First of all, in today's Jewish world, the majority of the Jewish people are Ashkenazim, which means German in Hebrew. Ashkenaz, interestingly enough, comes from the lineage of Gomer, and Gomer obviously is from the lineage of Japhet, who is a brother of Ham and Shem, the children of Noach, or the children of Noah. So if Shem is the father of the Jewish people, then how does Ashkenaz or Ashkenazim, where do they come from? Are they real Jews? And the answer to that question comes from the patterns or the norms of the exiles. Now, when the Jews went into exile, many times they would move west, they would move east, north, and south. But ultimately, when they got scattered for the last time throughout the whole world, a healthy bunch of Jewish people. Well, actually, let's start with the Syrian exile in Sennacherib, because that's when the 10 lost tribes of Israel were lost, and the majority of these 10 tribes, they went east and south. The majority, all the way to Pakistan, all the way to Afghanistan in the mountain, all the way to India, and they went all around the eastern belt and found their way to the Americas, because even with Native American Indian people, there is Jewish blood. And so the shortest way to circumnavigate the earth is not to go west, is actually to go east, north of China, Russia, and then come through by Alaska, Canada, and then populate the Americas. And that's basically what happened. So a majority of these 10 tribes were scattered all over the world, but mostly in the east and the south, meaning it's south of the rivers of Kush, which is sub-Saharan Africa, which is Saharan Africa, and also the Middle East. For an example, in Pakistan, the Afridi people or the Afridi tribes are Jewish. If you go to India, you will find that amongst the Dravidian Indians, there's Ethiopian blood, and therefore the house of Dan and the house of Naphtali and the house of Manasseh, are in that mix. Actually, a little while ago, I don't know how many months, maybe not a year, less than that, a group of Asians who were from the house of Manasseh had just made Aliyah and gone back to Israel. So those 10 tribes during the Syrian exile, those 10 displaced tribes were scattered all over the world. Now, Jewish people don't like us to talk about the 10 tribes as lost, because they are not lost to God. God knows who they are, but they seem lost in terms of history and the story. So Jewish people prefer us to say they are displaced. Now, that leaves Judah and maybe Benjamin or Ephraim. And these ones are scattered mostly to the west. Some Ashkenazi historians say Dan and Naphtali were also scattered to the west, and some Ashkenazi historians will say that rivers like the Danube River of Europe is because Dan was there, and because his descendants named everything after their tribe, which I find hard to believe, but I do know that Dan made his way down to Africa because his ancestry is with Jacob and Bilhah, and Bilhah, of course, is a Sudanese woman or a northern Egyptian, an Upper Egyptian woman, which is a Cushite woman, an extremely black woman, and therefore it was only natural for Dan to come down. The prophet Zephaniah says that in the last days, from the Cushites will come back to Yehuda, to Judah, bringing a gift, which is Shiloh. And it says they will come from the south of the rivers of who? Of Cush. So that gives us an understanding that naturally people like Dan and Naphtali would have come south, and everybody else would have gone everywhere else. So we find that a lot of Jews moved to Europe, to Eastern Europe, to where the Cossacks the Caucasians were. When I say Caucasian, I'm not talking about someone with blonde hair and blue eyes, because the original Caucasians are not like that. The Caucasians look like Mongols. Now, if you want to know how a Caucasian looks like, go to Google and look up Cossacks, and you will understand the demographic. So these Jews moved into this area of Eastern Europe, partly where the Caucasians were in the mountain and partly where the Cossacks were. And that's why Eastern European Jews, like the Hasidics, for an example, they wear these big hats with that look like bear skin. Look like bear skin with hair and wool and whatever. So their way of dressing in gowns and long socks, that's typically Eastern European Cossack, Caucasian way of dressing. And of course, they moved further west. So they moved into the lands of East Germans and eventually to conventional Germany. I call it conventional Germany because it is some distance from Russia. So in the Eastern Belt, you have the Balkans, you have the Cossacks, you have the Caucasians, you have all the mountain people, which are the descendants of Gomer, who is the descendant of Japhet, who is the son of Noah, third son of Noah. So these Jews moved to that area of the world, and they took on the customs of the people they lived in. Now, Jews are interesting people because Jews are faithful to the Bible, but also the Jews are prone to assimilation. A Jew cannot move to any part of the world without absorbing that culture into his own sphere. So it's called assimilation. And so the Jews assimilated to those nations even though they kept the faith, the customs, the food. For an example, pickled fish. Jews don't eat pickled fish in Israel, but in Eastern Europe they do, because it's Eastern European custom to pickle food so that it keeps during the cold winters, for an example. We don't see Ashkenazim eating flatbread, hummus, couscous, and all the typically Middle Eastern food, but we see them eating European food. Their music is influenced by European music. For an example, Ashkenazim are heavily influenced by the Christian church, because in Europe and the Renaissance and the classical music era, Baroque era, all these wonderful initiatives of civilization have had an impact on Jewish people, which is why sometimes you go to some synagogues and it feels like you're at church, because there's organ music and there's contemporary style, a classical style of presenting liturgy. So these Jews who were Semites found a home in the West. In Eastern Europe. Now, they were not welcome, obviously, in Eastern Europe, and there was sustained persecution. And let's fast forward to the times of Hitler and the Spanish Inquisition. Some Jews moved to Spain. Now, we get the idea that even before the ultimate scattering of the Jewish people, we get the idea that already there were Jews living in Spain, because the word Sfarad or Spain is in the Bible and specifically in the prophets. So we understand that even before the ultimate scattering of the Jewish people, there were already Jews living in Spain. Rabbi Paul, who's known as the Apostle Paul in Christianity, he says, I will go to Spain, I will come to you. The reason why he mentions Spain is because it's the farthest flung Jewish community of that time, which has had an ancient history of living abroad. So Sfarad or Spain is in the Bible. So you have Spanish Jews, which are called Sephardim or Sephardic Jews. Ashkenazim, German Jews. Sfaradim, Spanish Jews. And then you have Jews who lived in the north of Africa before the Spanish Inquisition. And these were called freedmen, because the North Africans were made slaves to the Romans. But when they were freed, these Jews, as free men, they were called the freedmen or referred to as the freedmen. And now when they moved to Europe, for an example, the surname now changes to Friedman, which is German, or if they're English, Freedmen, literally freedmen. But these are not Caucasians, these are not Europeans, these are North Africa from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and some of them from Egypt. And then you obviously have Egyptian Jews. You do have Egyptian Jews because even in the Exodus, only 2% of the Jewish nation left Egypt. 98% stayed behind in Egypt. They didn't want to go with Moses. And so there are Jews in Egypt. And this explains why Egypt today has a little bit more skin color than the rest of Africa. It's not because the Greeks came, it's not because of the Romans came, it's because even back in the days, there were mixed people because they were mixed with the Jews, and the majority of the Egyptian population were Jewish people. Of course, Rome played a part in changing the demographics, of course. Greece also played a part in this. So you have Ashkenazim, you have Sephardim, you have freedmen Jews or Moroccan Jews as well, as they're called. And then you have Ethiopian Jews, which are called Beta Israel. But they were first called Falasha. And Falasha is not a good word. Falasha means the lost ones, the castaway ones. And they didn't want to be called Falasha anymore because they were coming back to their big brother Judah, and they adopted the identity of Beta Israel or the house of Israel. These are typically your Ethiopian Jews, Somali, Eritrean. They all fall under Beta Israel because those are the one and the same people. They were only scattered and divided because of colonial politics and colonial intentions. So Ethiopian Jews are the other recognized community. So you've got Ashkenazim, you've got Sfaradim, you've got Ethiopians, you've got freedmen Jews or North African Jews. And then you have Mizrahi Jews. Mizrahi Jews are your Eastern Jews, those who are in Iran, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Oman, Arabia, all the way to India and Pakistan and the northern parts of Afghanistan, overlooking China and overlooking the Mongol territories. And so those are Mizrahi or Eastern Jews. And then you have Indian Jews, which are not many in number. Indian Jews have their ancestry in old Persia. From Persia, they moved to where? They moved to India. And also, some of the disciples of Yeshua have had an influence on India itself, the natives of India, and therefore some of the Jewry that we see in India may have been brought by the disciples of Yeshua. So to say that the church or Judaism had no impact, or to say that the faith of Yeshua is Christian would undermine the Jewish influence that was brought to the East. And then obviously you used to have Afghani Jews who fall under Mizrahi as well. And then after Mizrahi Jews, you have Asian Jews. In China, you have a lot of Jews in China. You have a lot of Jews in the Pacific Islands. You've got Jews in Madagascar. And then, of course, after Ethiopian Jews, you also have sub-Saharan Jews, which are the Lembas, part of the Venda community. The Lembas, you find them in Zanin, and then you find the majority of them in Zimbabwe. The Lembas are special because they come not just from the house of Dan or associated with the house of Dan because they couldn't have been as Levites. They are actually from the house of Levi, mixed with Danites. And this is not abnormal because during the time of the Jewish tribes, every tribe needed to keep a percentage of priests who would do priestly work in their communities. So if a community moves to Europe, it takes the Pharisees and the Sadducees with it. You understand? So the Lembas are genetically tested and proven to be the Levites of the house of Levi. That makes them priests, either in the Mosaic house or in the Aaronic house, but they are proven priests. So you have the Lembas who have transferred their religion and beliefs onto the Venda people. So that's why the Venda people have Jewish customs. And so you have Lembas in South Africa and Zanin. You've got Lembas in Zimbabwe, and then you have Jews in Mozambique. You have Jews in Madagascar. In Madagascar is a collection of Jewish graves because the Jewish merchants moved all over the world. Jewish merchants were doing business in Africa even before Europe became a commercial center. And Europe owes its civilization and commercialization to Jewish people. Without Jewish people, they would not have been able to put the structures in place that they have in terms of economic development. And then, of course, after Madagascar and Mozambican Jews, you have Tanzanian Jews. And then you have Abayudaya. Abayudaya are Ugandan Jews, a tribe in Uganda. And then you have Ghanaian Jews. In Nigeria, the Igbo tribe is Jewish. What Christianity did is try and depose the Igbo kings and change all their Jewish heritage and make them Christians. So a lot of Igbos in Nigeria don't know that they're Jewish, but they are beginning to reclaim their Jewishness. So you've got Jews in Ghana, you've got Jews in Nigeria, which is really interesting though, because world politics tend to put two nations in conflict in order to reach an expected end. And so there's conflict between Ghanaians and Nigerians, but these people are somewhat Jewish. Not all Ghanaians are Jewish, not all Nigerians are Jewish, but Judaism or the Hebrew blood is present in plentiful amounts in Nigeria and in the country of Ghana. And of course you got Mali and Eritrea. I don't know much about Jews there, but those Jews would fall under freedmen because they would all be North African Jews. Now you've exhausted Africa, now you're going to the Americas. People like Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus, first of all, his name Christopher Columbus is a transliteration of Cristobal Colon. All right, so Cristobal Colon, he was what you call a converso. In Spanish, when you say converso, you are talking about a person who was forced to leave his religion and he was forced to become a Christian. So Christopher Columbus was a Jewish man, and he was forced to, like many Jews during the time of the Inquisition in Spain, to become a Christian. So in the Jewish world, you have what's called the Anusim, which are the Jews who are lost in Christianity, which converted on their own will. And then you have the the Conversos, who were forcefully converted like Christopher Columbus. Now, the Christian church needed the Jews in Portugal and Spain to circumnavigate the world. The Romans and the Italians did not have the tools to circumnavigate. They didn't know navigation. Navigation was a specialty of Jewish people, Arabs, and black people of East Africa. These are people who have sailed the world even before Europe built a ship. And so these people, the Jews who were in the Spanish world and the Portuguese Sephardic world, were forced and became conversos, and they took the mission of the church to the Americas. So here's something wonderful that happens. A little bit of Manasseh, according to my understanding, is in the American Indian people's blood. So you have a Jewish guy, Christopher Columbus. He sails to the west and discovers the New World, and the Westerners or the Spanish make war against the native people of America. Here's what happens. You have natives with Jewish blood, and you have these Europeans with Jewish blood, and there is a clash. But the clash is not taking part in the context of Judaism, but in the context of Christianity and the evangelization of the world, the forced conversion of peoples to Christianity. So as you can see, you have a lot of Jewish communities. If you go to Pakistan today, like I said, the House of the Afridis is Jewish. In Afghanistan, in the mountains, a lot of Jews, but they practice Islam. So I guess they become the Anusim, because not that Muslims are intolerant to Jews, but it's a lot safer in an Islamic world to just do what everybody else does. Otherwise, you lose your head, right? And so the Jewish people, they had assimilated to Islam. I remember watching this documentary of this one man who knows, and he says, my father is not just Abraham, but Jacob. And he says, we are Afghani Jews, and the reason why we practice Islam is for our own safety. I remember watching this documentary some time ago. So as you can see, there are more than just 4 classifications of Jewish people. Today, there's a movement going on in Southern Africa. For an example, I'm involved in a movement that is trying to see just how far the Jewish blood extends to Southern Africa, from the Xhosa people, from the Basotho people, from the Tsonga people, from the Ndebele people, because some of our symbols and traditional wear and some of our cultures interpret into Jewish customs, for example, our culture is a portion of oral law. Our vestments resemble that of the cloaks or the vestments of Israel. And so there you have it. There's more than just 4 houses of Jews. To understand what Jewish people mean when you think you're Jewish and they refute your Jewishness, Ashkenazim, especially the European Jews, is basically a form of racial profiling. But what they mean to say is your mother Jewish? When they say you are not Jewish, or are you Jewish, are they saying is your mother Jewish? Because there's many layers in being Jewish. Being Jewish means you come from Jacob, you're the seed of Jacob, and also you're the seed of Abraham. It also means you practice the Jewish faith, you're converted to the Jewish faith. And so the many levels, you have to listen to somebody and see which level they're speaking to you at. But a biblical definition of a Jew is what happened to Abraham. God says to Abraham in Hebrew, Lech lecha, which means go and see for yourself. When you interpret it properly, it says come out of yourself and go into the new life which I will show you, which is what God was doing when he was taking Abraham from Babylon, taking him to Canaan and promising him that his descendants will inherit Canaan. So God, when Abraham decided in his heart that the idols of his family, because Abraham was born into an idolatrous family, a Babylonian family, when he decided that the idols are no longer for him, that there's a God in heaven and God is one, not many gods, his heart changed. He had a circumcision of the heart. So by definition, becoming a Jew is having a circumcision of the heart. So if you repent from your sins, if you put away other gods like the Trinity, if you put away idols, if you put away Islam, if you put away Hinduism and you come to the God of Israel, you are busy getting your heart circumcised. You are becoming a Jew. So by definition, biblical definition, being a Jew is a circumcision of heart.